Gothic horror is in its renaissance at the moment with a plethora of spooky films like Nosferatu, Dracula A Love Tale, and Frankenstein having come out within the last year. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my favorite Dungeons & Dragons module, The Curse of Strahd. I'm Jess, a dungeon master and lover of all things Curse of Strahd. So if you're one of my players, this is your warning. You need to leave now, I'm about to drop some lore. Fleshing out the relationship between Strahd and Ireena will provide context for your players, from which they'll then begin to understand the adventure itself. Curse of Strahd is a sandbox, and in many ways they'll have to find their own reasons why they'll want to go after the big bad. And that's where Ireena can help. Ireena should be raising more questions than she's answering. She should be propelling the story forward by making your players invested in helping. Defeating the big bad because he's bad or evil is valid, but I think we can make it richer. Much of what your players will feel about Strahd will be determined through his reputation. And this might be because of a couple of things. Maybe they've already met him and he was super charming and they think he's great on first evaluation. Or second, they haven't met him and instead they've run into his wake of destruction. And that's where Ireena comes in. She's met the man intimately. She's been bitten by him, charmed by him, had sweet nothings whispered in her ear. So her dealings with him will inform the party of how they should feel about him. These scenes should happen beyond the table and behind the DM screen. So I've come up with 3 Strahd Ireena pairings that I think provide context without you having to write all the exposition. I often see posts and comments on Reddit about players not engaging with Ireena, that DMs don't know how to play her, that they don't really understand her role in the game. And that's totally valid. In the 2014 Curse of Strahd book, there's 217 words on roleplaying Ireena. For comparison, there are 303 on her brother Ismark, who is decidedly less important. She's perhaps the most important NPC within the whole game. That's just not enough. One thing that I want to make very clear is that I do not see her as a damsel in distress. It's been done, it's a very tired thing, I'm so over meaningless female plot death. Ireena's peril is that she is being hunted by a man. This man believes himself to be the hero, because after all, who better to save her from Strahd than Strahd himself? Ireena should be your North Star. Barovia as a land preys upon the good nature and generosity of the adventurers. As they trudge along through the adventure, they'll find themselves being tested and turned against each other. NPCs will inspire pity, frustration, and even anger. They might not even want to help them. So for me, she is a constant of goodness. She understands the way Barovia works, the way the land makes people turn against each other. And despite that, she still wants to help her people. She's kind, generous, empathetic. She is someone that should foster and encourage goodness in the players. You can utilize her by keeping them on track. She's not a great fighter. She might have some moderate healing capabilities, but she won't have much utility outside of that. Her role is not to outshine your heroes. And I also can't say this enough, she's not a DMPC either. Ireena is a victim, after all. She is collateral in Strahd's curse, but she doesn't see herself as one. She wants to do more and be more for her people. In Curse of Strahd Reloaded, we see 3 different versions of Strahd. We see the gentleman, the tyrant, and the monster. Strahd should begin the game as a charming noble, and then make a nosedive through terrible tyrant into a fully fledged monster. So I've come up with 3 different ideas of Strahd based on those archetypes as examples. First up in the mix is our pitiful villain Frederick Zoller and our heroine Shoshana Dreyfus from Inglourious Bastards. As a note, when this film came out, I was quite young, and at the time I thought their dynamic was kind of sweet. I didn't understand why she was so mean to him. I think the same thing can be said about Strahd and Ireena. Under the right lens, it's almost romantic. It's creepy, but it's almost romantic. I'm older now, and I see that dynamic for what it was. Creepy. Frederick Zoller embodies all the self-awareness of a customer flirting with a cashier. She's being paid to be nice to him, and he just won't get the hint. Shoshana tolerates his attention to an extent because of his power. His uniform is a sign of danger to her, one that she can't fend off. Zola is continuously finding reasons to talk to Shoshana, much like Strahd is. Strahd wants to get to know Ireena, he wants to endear himself to her. He shows up in all of his finery, he is the ruler of Barovia after all. And like Shoshana, Ireena is not interested, but how do you let someone know that when the power divide is so huge? He could make her life hell. Zola has some fame within the movie. He's in with his higher-ups. They want to make a movie about his war exploits. Strahd is the same. He has military acumen, he is a general, he is the conqueror of Barovia. They're both occupiers of their land. Zola thinks it's a great idea to have his movie playing at Shoshana's theatre, so she is shoved into a car for fear of her life and is delivered into the hands of her greatest enemy. Strahd likewise loves a carriage ride, and should Ireena be unguarded, he could easily whisk her away. What waits at Castle Ravenloft is oppression, and at the very worst, her death. Zola is all manners and cordiality until he's not. And I think this is a great example of the gentleman. He is refined, he's handsome, he's decorated. He thinks that he represents something greater. He has no understanding of the monstrosity of his alliance. And his very presence in Shoshana's life is a cause for perpetual fear. Fear of being found out, fear of death. This example reaches its apex in the projection scene. We see that Zola tries to meet with Shoshana 3 times, and on the 4th time she rebuffs him, quite sternly. She's afraid for her life. This is where we see him for who he is. I am not a man you say go away to. He shoves past her. We see that he is all anger and entitlement. He is a monster underneath a veneer. He's not simply nice to her because he's nice to her because he wants something from her. What experience of Strahd has Ireena already encountered? Has she pushed him away just for him to push back even harder? Has she had to placate him? Ireena should feel afraid of Strahd. She should be aware of their power dynamic and should relish help from the party to get away somewhere safe. How Strahd has acted with Ireena should inform that fear. It should push her to warn the party that they should be mindful of his veneer and what it hides underneath. My last 2 kind of bleed into one another. You could move them around or make them interchangeable, but Curse of Strahd is inherently camp. There's a flamboyantness to it that I think appeals to the theatre, and that's why my next example, the Tyrant, is of the Phantom from the Phantom of the Opera, and Christine Daae. The Phantom locks Christine away. He charms her into his lair. He uses violence on those who would oppose him, and he spends his time plotting his escape with Christine. Does that sound familiar at all? I see a lot of parallels between Barovia and the Opera Populaire. Both of them exist in a bubble universe, with Strahd and the Phantom having complete control over their inner workings. No one enters into Barovia without Strahd's express say-so. Likewise, nothing transpires in his lands without his knowledge. The same can be said for the Phantom. He knows every rope, every lever, he knows every doorway, he even writes the scores. There's a lot of control in this dynamic. The Phantom doesn't want her seeing Raoul. He locks her away. He appears in her mirror. He is her angel of music. He is her savior. I personally love the look of when Christine and Phantom are going down to his lair. It gives this kind of Strahd's charm about it. She has little to no recollection of what transpired. The glow of it, the sort of heightened senses, I think this is a great example of what you can make it look like for Ireena. There is also a veneer aspect to the Phantom that I think is true of Zola as well. In his lair, Christine tries to unmask him. She wants to see what's hiding beneath, and in that moment, he's cruel. He shoves her away, he calls her names. She sees in this moment that his facial difference is not the thing that she should be afraid of. She should be afraid of the monster within, because that unmasking is unmasking of the monster, not just of his face. In the song Stranger Than You Dreamt It, we see the Phantom sing, "Fear can turn to love, you'll learn to see, to find the man behind the monster." He is aware of his true nature. That self-awareness is not something I would ever give Strahd. That's why he's cursed. He has no empathy. He can always justify his actions. Gary Oldman's Dracula pauses before he attempts to turn Mina. He knows that he is condemning her to his curse, that undeath. Unlike Edward Cullen, Strahd doesn't care for Ireena's immortal soul. The Phantom exerts his power over the opera. He controls Christine and generally makes life hell for everyone within it. The cruel twist is that his entrapment is completely self-imposed. He could literally go anywhere he likes, but he stays and chooses entrapment. He chooses to wallow in his own misery. I do actually love the Phantom the same way that I love Strahd. I pity them both. I see them as the lion with the thorn in its foot. They are hurt, they're angry, they want to take it out on anyone else. And Christine in all of this, and Ireena in all of this, they are simply collateral. Christine is young and sweet and talented, and despite her miserly beginnings and the treatment from the Phantom, she is still hopeful for her future. The tyrant begins to rear its head throughout the middle part of the adventure, when that cool, calm demeanor begins to slip, and you see behind that mask a cruelty, a viciousness, and a ruthlessness. Ireena at this point should feel desperate. Her light is beginning to wane, but she should have some rapport with the party, and this should push them forward to protect her as Strahd becomes more bold in trying to possess her. Now, if ever there was a monstrous villain, his name would be Claude Frollo. Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of the best Disney villains they've ever come out with. Frollo believes himself to be devout, pious, righteous, a benevolent judge. He punches down on those beneath him, trying to take them down to a place where he can convince them how bad they truly are. Because if he can see how bad they are, and if everyone else can too, then he can show them how much better he is. But when evil is opposed, what do? Well, they go after their opposition with the full force of their might. Cue Esmeralda. Esmeralda, much like Ireena, is good. She is generous, empathetic, warm. She cares for the plight of her community, and she stands against the evil of Frollo. Frollo can't comprehend his own desire for Esmeralda, so he projects his ideas onto her. He believes she is a vagrant and a sinful woman. She is a test from the devil. Like Ireena, we find that Esmeralda's only source of protection is from the church. We see this with Father Donovich and Father Petrovich in some of Ireena's earliest travels. These hallowed grounds hold no haven for our monsters. Esmeralda provides the juxtaposition from which we can truly understand the nature of Frollo. In her light, he becomes seen. We see that he is an abuser, he is a predator, a narcissist, he is the worst of the worst. It should be this juxtaposition that we also glimpse Strahd's true nature in the light of Ireena. In I, Strahd, we see that Tatiana chooses Sergei because of his goodness. He is young and unmarred by the war years that Strahd endured. Strahd's jealousy drives him to desperation. He would not be called Old One or Elder, regardless of how respectful the connotations. He would have Tatiana, he would possess her at all costs. Ireena's happiness never occurs to him. He so fervently believes that she belongs to him, that she will continue to live for him, that this is a test. The real tragedy in all of this is that the punishment is Tatiana's, it is Ireena's, it is all of her reincarnations. She's just a plaything, and she will never live out a full life. She did nothing wrong except catch the wrong man's attention, and the punishment is to live out eternity on the run. Esmeralda is Frollo's undoing. In his quest to have her, he is met with the consequences of his injustice. He is judged divinely, he slips and falls from the roof. But unlike Ireena, Esmeralda will get out alive. She will not be continuously punished in a cycle. The bane and the boon to Curse of Strahd is that it leaves a lot of room for adaptation. Loose threads and plot holes mean that we can fill in the blanks. What works for me might not work for you, but I would be remiss if I didn't try to encourage everyone else to do justice to our most important NPC, Ireena Kolyana or Tatiana Fedorovna. Through Ireena, we can foster more engagement from our players. We can provide a better and more engaging story. Her journey through Barovia is to walk beside the adventuring party. She is an eternal guide both towards goodness and the finish line. In a meta sense, she has endured many reincarnations. My Ireena might be slightly different to your Ireena, but they both come from the same stat block. She suffers the same fate at my table as she does in the book. Every time we pick up the Curse of Strahd module, we condemn her to another life on the run. Balancing such an important person with the journey of the heroes is a fine line to walk. She's not a sidekick, but she's not as important or powerful as the heroes. She's the catalyst for investment from your players and the moral guide for the party when they inevitably go astray. How she feels about Strahd should set a precedent for how we should all feel about Strahd. Regardless of how romanceable he may seem to the party, she has seen behind the mask and she knows this monster. Strahd's pursuit of Ireena reveals his true intention, and over time the party will see him for the monster he is, creating a more compelling reason to take him down. Ireena will always be his undoing. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This will not be the last time that I talk about the Curse of Strahd. It is my favorite module. Ireena is my favorite NPC across any of the adventures. So if you've done anything cool with her, if you've utilized her in a different way, if you've had one of your player characters play her, or you just have a story you want to share, I'd love to hear it. Anyway, like, share, follow, subscribe. I hope to see you here next time. Bye!